Have you ever found yourself in a situation so absurd, so upside down that you genuinely wondered if you'd woken up in somebody else's life? One of those moments where nothing makes sense and it feels like the universe itself is having a laugh at your expense. I had one of those days, and let me tell you, it still blows my mind just thinking about it. All I wanted was to fix my own front door, but somehow by lunchtime I was the main character in a small town drama that had the whole neighborhood glued to their windows. I'll set the scene. I'm David Carter, 67, retired engineer, and for the last couple years the proud owner of a classic two-story colonial on Ashton Drive in a suburb that seemed peaceful enough when I moved in. My wife Sarah passed away some years back, and after spending a lifetime in noisy cities, I wanted a little peace, a backyard for tomatoes, a porch where I could sip tea and maybe get back to reading. But you know how it goes. There's always someone who can't mind their own business. In my case, that was Eva Peterson, my neighbor 2 doors down. And if you looked up HOA busybody in the dictionary, you'd find her picture in full color. She was always marching around in a bright pink tracksuit, phone clutched like a badge of authority, handing out opinions and HOA violation notices like Halloween candy. From the get-go, she made it clear that she saw herself as the neighborhood gatekeeper. First week I moved in, I was out planting rose bushes and she stomped right across my lawn, told me in no uncertain terms that my flowers weren't on the approved list for the homeowners association. Joke's on her, though, I'd already read every word of those HOA rules, and my heritage roses were perfectly legal. I told her as politely as I could, but she just glared at me and marched off. Her mouth pursed tighter than a drum. That was just the opening act. So fast forward to a certain Tuesday morning, I'm on my porch fixing the door frame. Someone had tried to break in the night before, and thanks to a lifetime of overbuilding things, my lock held, but the frame was splintered. I'm there with my chisel, just minding my business, when suddenly I hear Eva screech, "What are you doing?" She's on the sidewalk waving her phone around like she's about to film the next episode of Neighborhood Cops. Fixing my door, Eva, I say someone tried to break in. She yells back, calling me a liar, accuses me of trying to break into someone else's house, my house. And before I know it, she's dialing 911, telling them there's a large, aggressive man with a weapon destroying her neighbor's door. The weapon was a wood chisel barely sharper than a butter knife. If you think that was a misunderstanding, you don't know Eva. She knew exactly who I was and where I lived. She'd filed 3 HOA complaints against me in 2 years. The roses, a non-compliant mailbox, and a Sunday barbecue. No, this was a performance for the whole block. So I put the chisel down, crossed my arms, and waited for the cops. I decided right then, today was the day Eva's little power trip was going to backfire big time. Now, before the cop cars even rolled up, let me back up a sec, because what really set off this circus happened 12 hours earlier. The night before, I'd been in my armchair reading about Roman aqueducts. Yeah, I'm that guy. When around 2 a.m. I heard a metallic thunk from the front door. I live alone, and I'm not as spry as I used to be, so I didn't exactly leap into action, but I did slip over to the window and peek out. My security lights caught someone hunched over my door, a crowbar in hand, struggling to pry it open. Not a pro, more like a scared, clueless teenager. Now I'm no fool. I'd installed cameras that captured the whole thing clear as day. My plan, let him dig his own grave. The kid finally gave up after a clumsy struggle, dropped the crowbar, and took off right in the direction of Eva's house. I checked the video the next morning, and when I zoomed in, there was no doubt who it was: Kevin Peterson, Eva's 19-year-old son. The whole neighborhood had heard whispers about his troubles dropping out of college, never working a real job but breaking and entering. That was a first. I saved the video on 3 drives and made my coffee like it was any other morning. When the police car showed up, lights flashing, 2 officers got out. One was a stocky, no-nonsense guy. Officer Miller and his partner was a younger woman. Officer Sanchez, sharp eyes, but she looked like she'd seen enough drama for 1 week. Eva, of course, was in full damsel-in-distress mode on the lawn, dabbing fake tears with a tissue and pointing at me like she'd just caught a burglar red-handed. Officer Miller asked me to step away from the door. Hands on display, no problem. They checked my ID, asked me what's going on. Eva's still yammering about how she's afraid for her life, how I've been casing the neighborhood for weeks. You know what I mean? The kind of drama you'd expect from a reality TV audition. But the officers, to their credit, keep it professional. I calmly explain that I own the house, point out the damage, and then I say, "Actually, officers, I have something you should see." I invite them in, show them the paperwork, deed bills, mortgage, all in my name, then boot up my computer and play the security footage. The officers watch as the hooded figure on the video fumbles with the crowbar. Then I switch to the garage camera, the money shot where Kevin, thinking he's in the clear, pulls back his hood right under the streetlight. His face is plain as day. Officer Sanchez lets out a low whistle. "That's Kevin Peterson," she says, eyes wide. And just like that, the whole narrative flips. They ask if I want to press charges. I say yes, absolutely. The cops step outside and in front of half the street march right over to Eva's house, Eva trailing after them, looking like she might faint. They knock. Kevin answers in his pajamas, bleary-eyed and clueless, and Officer Miller cuffs him right there for attempted burglary and vandalism. The sound of those cuffs snapping shut might be the sweetest music I've ever heard. Eva, meanwhile, collapses on her own lawn. Paramedics called the whole 9 yards a true Hollywood meltdown. But here's the twist. The story didn't end with Kevin's arrest or Eva's fainting spell. It was just the spark that set off a bigger change. After things calmed down, neighbors started coming over bringing brownies, offering apologies, telling me their own Eva horror stories. Turns out almost everyone had been targeted at some point. Fines for fence slats, complaints about holiday lights, kids' toys, you name it. Eva had turned the HOA into her personal weapon. That's when I realized I didn't just want justice for myself, I wanted to fix the root of the problem. So I went full engineer on it. Dug into the HOA rulebook, gathered stories, and drafted a bylaw amendment, the good neighbor mandate. No more anonymous complaints, no more serial harassers. Every complaint had to be signed by 2 different households, and serial false complaints could get you suspended from filing. I spent weeks talking to neighbors, building a coalition, prepping my case. We even had a potluck in my backyard, 15 families sharing Eva stories, and for the first time in years, laughing about it. The night of the big HOA meeting, we showed up in force, the whole front row packed. I presented the data, dozens of complaints, 80% dismissed as bogus. I never named Eva, but everyone knew. I showed them her anonymous letter warning about outsiders ruining the neighborhood. I finished by saying, this isn't about punishing one person, it's about restoring trust and community. The board voted. Every hand in the room except one went up Eva's. Her power gone with the thump of a gavel and a round of applause. After that, everything changed. The parade of complaints stopped. Neighbors started talking again, and for the first time since I moved in, Ashton Drive felt like home. Eva's house, once the gold standard for curb appeal, started to look shabby. Her power had always depended on fear and isolation. Her son took a plea deal, paid for my repairs, and disappeared into the background. Eva became a ghost, glimpsed only getting in and out of her car. The real victory wasn't the check for repairs or even the amendment. It was sitting on my porch, watching kids play, neighbors chat, and knowing we'd taken back our street without screaming, without revenge, just by standing up and telling the truth. I guess that's the thing about justice. Sometimes it comes quietly like sunlight after a storm. So that's my story. If you've ever been pushed around by a neighborhood tyrant or had to fight for your place in your own home, let me know in the comments. Was I right? Was I wrong? Did I go too far? Maybe justice looks different to you. Either way, I'd love to hear your stories. Because at the end of the day, none of us should have to fight this kind of battle alone.